On today's Laguna Woods Stories, we meet a funny lady and an animator.
Well, we're thrilled to have with us in our studio today Joey Sims.
Hi.
And Joey Sims is the funny lady of Laguna Woods. And Joey, most of us have been to Comedy Club and have seen your little 10-minute introduction to Comedy Club every week. And, don't fully trust everything you say then and there because I know it's derived from your life, but enhanced, I think, a little bit. But you're always funny and clean and good.
It's all true.
It's all true. All right. What I'm saying.
I don't know what I'm saying.
Okay. Where did you start this journey? Where were you born? Where are you from originally?
I originally was born in Colby, Kansas, and I think I started at the Kansas City Square Dance House when I was about 2.
Really?
Then I had an Italian family that liked show business, and I had a French family that didn't, but the Italian family used to let me tap dance on the bar and pass the hat. They were a lot of fun. Yeah. Okay.
How did you happen to come out to Hollywood? What brought you here?
My mother and I decided to move to California.
Okay.
And for a while we stayed in the Wilshire district.
Now, did you just decide to move because California was appealing, or?
Well, we hated Kansas.
Okay. Fortunately, this is not going to be aired in Kansas.
I'm sorry, but
we
were happy to come to California. I came when I was 13, and
Okay.
I love it here.
How did you get involved in showbiz?
After I came here, I was a singer and a tap dancer.
Okay.
And so I would enter talent contests. There was all kinds of contests, like Rocket to Stardom. I danced on Al Jarvis for 6 weeks.
Really?
I danced and entertained on Dick Clark.
No kidding.
I even sang with the Spade Cooley Band at the Long Beach Pier.
No kidding. Wow.
So I stayed real busy trying to do what little I could, and then I got married.
Okay. Why does that bring a laugh?
It slowed me down a lot.
Yeah. Well, there was a gong show somewhere in the midst of all of this.
Yeah, that I did with him. He was a very conservative architect, and he used to say to me, "Can't you just stay home like other people?" Because I even took my daughter on that show, and we won because we did an impersonation and a song of Carol Burnett's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we did Queen of the House to King of the Road.
You ended up being a single mom and eventually single grandma, and you started a group.
I ended up inheriting a grandchild when I was 45 and just gotten single. And I was in real estate. She hated it. It was either hold the baby or read the multiple book. Nobody was crazy about that. So I turned my customers into a store called Chez Joey in Laguna Niguel that I ran for 17 years, a boutique. And let's see, what was the question?
Well, you started a group
because it was difficult to raise a child at that age.
Right.
Especially with no financial help and being single. So I started a group called Grandparents as Parents that had already started in Los Angeles, but they had none here.
So you started a local chapter of that.
Started a local chapter. We met in Irvine. We had a therapist. And there were so many grandchildren being raised by grandparents at that time.
Wow.
And we would help each other. We had picnics and we had weekly therapy. And it was wonderful. And even after I got out, when my granddaughter got older, they're still going.
Wow.
There are 67 chapters here in Orange County.
Here, just in Orange County?
Yes.
Wow, so you started that?
Started the chapter here. I did television in San Clemente to get members. And then my therapist was from Irvine, and we advertised there. And grandmothers just came out of the woodwork. Some working on their second or third go-around on a grandkid in those days.
So you've had some difficulties in your life. It hasn't all been chuckles.
Usually that's how comedians are.
I was wondering, comedy, I think, often comes out of difficulties.
I think so, too, yeah. Because, it's better than killing yourself, make people laugh. So.
When did you first become aware that you could make people laugh?
Probably when I was 3 or 4 years old.
Really?
I really do think you're born with it. You know, I went to the Improv, and I worked at the Improv even, but I went to the Improv and took lessons and found out that you can learn how to do it. You can learn rhythm and setup and punch and all that, but it comes from inside.
But if it's not, if you don't have that funny bone inborn.
That's right. I think it's inborn.
Yeah. Well, and out of life circumstances too. Now you talked about starting this grandparents group, but you've started some things here at Laguna Woods Village.
Yeah, when I first came here 17 years ago, I started with Jim Schaefer, TGIF. There were 3 of us that started it, and I was doing publicity and trying to get entertainment. The only entertainment that was in this whole Laguna Woods was a little lady that was quite old, and called the Dalton Gang. And she played the piano, and another couple of people would sit in. It was not easy to listen to nor dance. So I would go around to the hotels and the places and draft the comedy for TGIF. And there actually were 4 of us that started
now,
it.
TGIF doesn't have a comedy segment now.
No, it never was comedy. It was hire bands and dance.
Oh, okay.
That's what it always was. And there was a lot of objection in this town at first. You know, like if Harry goes to those Friday night cocktail parties, he's going to be a danger on the road. This was in the Globe. And she wrote back, he wrote back and said, if you don't like my Friday night parties, keep your car off the sidewalk. And there was a lot of back and forth because they didn't think we were ready to have a 2-hour cocktail party and dance.
Right.
And I think it's one of the greatest clubs here. And it's grown. We're like 280 now.
Right. So you've been involved in that since the beginning, and also the Comedy Club. How did that come about?
Well, the Comedy Club was just limping along 14 years ago, and they were getting a few people out of the audience to tell jokes. Sometimes they were dirty, and they didn't go over because they were dirty, or the guy told such a long one he had to ask his wife, what was that punchline, Elsie? It was pretty amateurish. And my friend Jordan started it, and he was getting older and didn't want to do it anymore. And I thought, you know, my whole life, I've worked in nightclubs, you know, on the Strip, I told you. I wanted to have my own nightclub, and I thought, well, here's the opportunity. Right. And so now we're up to 380, 400, 450. We do quite well now.
I've noticed you have to get there early to
get there early.
A seat.
And I think part of the charm is that they bring their food. Right. And they dine and wine with their best friends for an hour, and it's a monthly thing, like for a family. Right. And we have our bartender. All the funds go back to GRF, which is good because I don't want the responsibility. So we just have bartenders for an hour and a half, but it's a fun evening, and it's only $5 now for guests and $10 for non-guests or for
non-members.
Non-members. I think that's going to go. I think that's going to go up. But it's a fun night. Everybody looks forward to it. You sure get a lot of bang for your buck.
Indeed, for $5 you get a good
professional.
Comedy.
I'm professional, and the people I hire are way more professional usually. I mean, we get them off of cruise ships, and they're good.
And you get coffee and cake.
And $300 brownies afterward. Yes, you do. I have to have a talk with them because they all think they can have a go bag. That's not the way we do it. We give all of our profits to Meals on Wheels. Florence Sylvester does fantastic things for the community. Most people aren't even aware of how much they do. And so I like the leftover cookies and brownies to go to the fire department or to Florence Sylvester.
If there are any leftovers.
But these people are fast.
How do you find good, clean but funny comedians to bring in?
You have to know where to go. I've gotten some from the Upper Room in Mission Viejo, which is a church venue for comedians, and there's actually some clean ones at the Improv if you weed them out. And we tell them it's PG-13, and so they have. If they're not good, they have a hard time sticking to that, But so far I think because I know so many, and it's word of mouth, and that makes it easier to hire them. And
Over
in fact,
time,
with
you
charity,
get to know
yeah.
the good comedians. Just finding good, funny, clean comedian must be a big job.
It is a big job, and you know, the clubs are the most important thing here. And somebody got up at the GRF meeting and said, you know, the clubs are run by us. And like, I have 20 volunteers, counting my board, that that work hard to set up that room, and anyway, it's wonderful, and it's the people that do it.
Now, you do what, is about a 10-minute monologue?
Sometimes 15, depending on what I've written, and then the song is always 3 or 4.
Yeah, well, tell us about this fascination with Bill Bailey, by the way.
When I was a little kid, I sang Bill Bailey. I was very young. I don't know when it was published, but I remember it was the first song I ever sang. So I didn't even know what a theme song was, but it was mine.
You didn't used to date a Bill Bailey or anything?
No.
Okay. I've noticed you use some other things too, but
yeah, I got 3 songs. The reason is I don't want to have to concentrate on them, and I know them so well, and I can have a couple glasses of wine, and I know I'm not going to forget the words. That's the true story of the songs.
Okay, I believe it. How do you see the humor in ordinary life? Because your monologues usually based on things that have happened in the last week or so.
It's so easy, especially in this community, you know? Like, I was at a beauty shop the other day. Actually, it was a barber shop over there by Polly's, and there was all these women. One was 99 years old, and I'm watching them all, and I'm listening to their conversation. And one got up, and the other one said, "You get up so much better than me. What is that about?" And she just looked at her. But, you know, it's just fun listening. And people, will, when the husband and wife go in the doctor's office, I get out my pen right away. Because that's going to be funny. But things in real life are the funniest. And Laguna Woods is a real chuckle.
Right. If you have the kind of slightly bent mind to see the humor.
You need to have a little bend, yeah.
Oh, what's coming up?
We have my favorite coming up. His name is Don Friesen. And he's a young guy, but he sets well with the older people and the boomers. Okay. That's another problem at the comedy club. You got to entertain the boomers who really like it to be a little R. And you got to entertain Saddleback Church, who's sitting right there in front of me, and they want PG-13. We had a bad experience at the last performance where somebody came. I'd watched this man at the Improv. I watched him on film. He probably was at 50-something, and he came there, and I think he was stoned, just really bad. And 135 people in mass got up and left.
Wow.
That has never, ever happened. In fact, in 12 years, we've only had 3 lemons, and he took the cake.
Wow.
I wish I hadn't paid him.
Yeah.
But I was thinking I have a contract, I have to, you know. Now I'm trying to get the money back, but to no avail.
Right. And he doesn't need to write you and ask for a letter of reference, I bet.
Oh, I let him know that. In fact, he's probably moving as we speak.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it's a tight-knit group here with Orange County comedians, you know?
Well, thank you, Joey.
Thank you.
I always enjoy a comedy club, and I've enjoyed having you on the show today. So
thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, we're delighted to have in studio Cindy Whitney. And Cindy, you're a familiar face here on TV6 because you do your own show, Discovering Laguna Woods. And that's on when?
It's on Wednesday mornings at 9:30.
9:30, a couple of hours before this show airs at noon on Wednesdays.
There you go.
Fun to have you here because we're turning the tables on you. You're usually behind the mic, directing questions at other people, and today you're in the hot seat. We're going to throw some questions at you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I believe I am.
Okay. You had a career with Disney in Hollywood. How did that happen?
Exactly. It's a wonderful blur to me at this point, Tom, to be honest with you. I came out here in 1979. I had a 6-year-old son. I was a single mom and just threw everything in the car and decided to move out here and took a chance.
Enough of that cold weather.
All of that, and just thought new horizons.
Yeah.
And had some art experience and some art training. So I right away started working at a Saturday morning cartoon house where they make. I worked on Fat Albert and Heckle and Jekyll and Flash Gordon and all of the Saturday morning. And that was kind of a hard place to work because you had to turn out a number of drawings per day.
Wow.
But I kept applying at Disney, which was right down the street, and I could see it from my window. And I just thought I want to work at Disney, so I applied.
Well, you and everybody else who worked in the animation industry wanted to work at Disney, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I didn't stand a chance. But sure enough, after the 4th time, I think maybe they took pity on me, but they gave me a chance in their training program,
Right.
and that was it.
Well, your first impressions of getting to Disney were what?
Well, since I had worked in traditional jobs, I worked in retail and so forth. I was used to a traditional work environment. I wasn't prepared for the fact that as you work among these artists, you're going to have creative types for sure. Spitball wars, water balloon fights, people dribbling a basketball up against your cubicle wall. And I sat there and I thought, when do these people work?
Wow.
And what I realized very shortly was this is the work process here, and it's available to me. So we had, dressed like a pirate day, dressed like a gorilla day. I mean, it was insane.
You were at Disney for a number of years.
24 years.
24 years. Wow, that is a number of years.
It is.
And what projects did you work on? Probably a lot, but which ones stick out in your mind?
Well, it wasn't exactly the golden era when I started there. It was Fox and the Hound, the Great Mouse Detective, the Black Cauldron. But then I worked on Oliver and Company. And then the final film that I worked on was The Little Mermaid. And Little Flounder was my character. But after that was about 12 years. So then I transferred over to the consumer products division because somebody had a bright idea. What if we made some stuff to these animated films? And somebody said, you think?
Yeah, right.
$5 billion division of came out of that with ESPN and 700 Disney stores
all over the country.
Everything, over the world.
Yeah.
And it just was this massive growth. They sent me all over the world, finding these people, training these people in these regional offices.
Yeah.
And it was so exciting.
Did you work on some of the products, or did you work on marketing them? Or
all of them? Yes, I worked on designing them and working with all the different licensees, from watches to towels. I mean, just every conceivable way that you can make.
So you were more at the corporate level than at the creative level, I guess, or a different kind of creativity.
Different kind of creative. Yes, I cried when they wheeled out my drawing table, and I had a couch in there now. So it was very different. But then as I went and trained and recruited these various artists, that was creative again, because we were getting down to the rudiments of the characters and their designs and so forth.
Now you said Flounder was your character. What do you mean by your character?
Well, that's the character that I spent the most time on.
Okay. Okay.
It's his little fin.
As an animator, to what extent are you actually creating the look of the character as
you work with the director, and the director has sort of a vision for this scene. Like, this is the scene where Ariel is going to swim out through this porthole, and Flounder's going to follow after her shortly, and there's going to be this massive bubbles, and they're going to dissolve into something. So you sit there and you work this out with the director. You go back to your desk and you start plotting out frame by frame. Each frame is 1/24th of a second. So
you have a separate drawing for each frame.
Every single one. Wow. And there was a lot of carpal tunnel animation.
So you start with a pencil drawing?
Yes.
Yeah, and then you check that to make sure it works.
Well, you rough it out. Rough meaning almost like scribbles, and you look at that on a machine that shows you how fast that's moving. Does it look right? Is it smooth? Is it doing what the director
What's the
intended?
hardest part in getting an animation right? Smoothness or just-
Well, is it cohesive with the other characters that might be in the scene?
yeah.
Is it working with the background that has already been established in a layout frame? So you actually have boundaries, which is helpful to an artist. Most artists ask, what boundaries do I have? How much time do I have? How much space do I have? And then I'll be very creative within those boundaries. But once you do that and you find that everything's working within that, then you finish it up and it goes into the work reel. And
So you start with a pencil drawing of it, and
you do everything on paper first, and that goes into what we call the work reel, which is the film itself is now starting to take shape. The whole thing is going to be probably 90 minutes in length, and so it's taking shape. And as each one of these scenes has been final approval, it's all each drawing has to be cleaned up too, and that means that one unvariegated line around every single character. That's approved. Then it goes. At that time, we still had cell painters. Those were the predominantly women who turned the drawing over, had been Xeroxed onto a celluloid sheet, and they draw a line around it in color, and then paint in like a paint by numbers.
I suppose as a little girl, you discovered you could draw. How did that come about?
I lived in a rural part of Massachusetts, and I had a little tree house out. I truly did a tree house out in the woods, and I would watch forest animals. I mean, what could be more appropriate to working at Disney? There were deer and rabbits and squirrels and things like that, and I drew them a lot. So there was an interest there, and that sort of I was reminded of that when I went back to my studies of where does creativity come from? It's a nurturing environment. Often there will be a supportive other, a parent or a teacher, but an environment that allows you to connect to these things and to draw them. So I think that was important to me.
Having had experience drawing real animals, that prepared you well to draw the fictional animals.
Exactly. And then you, as an artist at Disney or anywhere, you have to go to the zoo constantly. You have to draw human people, drawing from life, and drawing animals, because their articulated forms are very important for you to understand how they move and sit and walk and so forth. Now you have to make them talk and laugh, which is...
Did it occur to you that you might want to someday work in animation?
When I got out to California, I mean, there's no possibility of that back east, because there was, it wasn't available.
That's where they were not doing animation.
They were not doing it, and so I had no real reference. But when I came out, and I thought, well, that's something I could do with my art skills.
Now, a number of years ago, animation made a huge turn. It was kind of gradual, but went from paper and pencil to computer.
But we all know that it isn't the tool that you use, it's the story. If you don't have a story, you don't have a film.
And even if you're using a computer to move the characters and whatnot, somebody has to create those characters, and that starts out on paper and pencil, I assume.
Yes, it does. It does. Yes, and they have to be appealing. They have to, have certain qualities. We work with cultural anthropologists and others who help us understand, what children relate to in a good character, in an evil character.
No kidding.
And there's a lot of that goes into.
That's pretty serious stuff.
Well, it is because you want to make these characters resonate with children. If you've ever seen Monsters, Inc., the little girl, I mean, she's the most endearing, character ever, with the big fluffy monsters. And there's a lot of, and Pixar was great because every time they had a success, they had Toy Story 1 and 2, and they worked with hard surfaced characters because they hadn't learned how to do flesh or hair yet. And so the success of Toy Story gave them the technology that they could now make. They did Bug's Life, again, hard surfaced exoskeletal characters. Then they discovered they could do fur. Monsters, Inc. Everything was furry. So, and they invested their money into new technologies to make it more successful.
And these days we see a lot of animation that we don't even recognize as animation. There's so much animation stuck into live action movies these days.
Everything has
and we don't
CGI.
know.
No, we don't. I mean, that church isn't in that scene. That hill isn't that ocean isn't in that scene. I mean, look at Game of Thrones. Nothing's in the scene.
And that character jumping off a cliff or whatever.
Yeah, there's no cliff there. It's all done digitally, but it's so seamless and so believable. They just do a magnificent job.
Well, somewhere along the line, you decided you want to go back to school and get a doctorate.
I did. When I was still working at Disney, I had gone and I was in my master's in human development and working on creativity, and there was a real downturn at Disney, unfortunately.
Having to do with that digital animation.
Well,
thing,
it had to do
well.
with, just the economy and the Disney stores and just things just weren't happening. And so, as a successful corporation, they had a massive layoff, and I got caught up in that, and I didn't take it personally.
Good.
But I said, I'm just finishing up my master's and the doctorate. I'm in the stride of learning. I've carved out a learning space in my life. I'm going to keep going. So I completed my doctorate in human and organizational systems, and I studied a lot about creativity. My doctoral dissertation was on creativity and job loss. So it was very cathartic.
Once again,
Yes, do what you know.
Art follows life, or in this case, doctoral studies follow life.
That's
sometimes,
right. That's right.
We're going to be teaching I'm going to be teaching a little short course on animation, kind of animation for fun.
Yay.
Do you ever do any animation anymore?
No,
just
it's no
for the
fun.
heck of it?
No, I'm kidding. That would be great. That would be great because animation, I think, adds a certain level of appeal to pretty much anything that you do, and it's great for storytelling, and it's a great way to express yourself.
And it really is relatively easy working with clay. Working with clay or working with models or puppets or stop motion things, and
Yes.
and it's fun. It's a great hobby.
1,000 years ago, when I was just starting out, I went to a school over in Rowland Heights. They had a little claymation class that they had on Saturday mornings. It was an elementary school, and this teacher asked a couple of us from Disney if we could go over there. And they didn't have the heat on there. We were freezing cold. We had our big puffy jackets on, and the clay was like rocks. And these poor little kids were trying to warm up the clay, and they made these little characters, and then they put the bright lights on them to shoot their little films, and the clay would melt over like that. And their little hands are going and trying to prop it up. Every frame had a little tiny hand in it. But God bless them. They did a great job. They made these little films, and we judged them, and we gave them all awards. Well, one of these young artist, John Ramirez, he became an animator at Disney. He has since moved on from that career, and now he's designing and creating floats for the Rose Parade.
Oh, my
It's an
goodness.
amazing life story, just from that little claymation class.
A success story from your one appearance.
Right. But you
Must have really inspired him.
No, I know. I went there for weeks, but it was great to see, and that's just one. I don't know. There may be many stories.
As a professor, I know you've taught a lot of college classes, and it's fun to see your students do well. So
it's the best.
Very satisfying.
It is the best.
Yeah, so.
Absolutely.
Well, we've really enjoyed this time with you, Cindy. Thank you for coming in.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And our guest has been Cindy Whitney, who does a lot of things here in the village, not the least of which is Discovering Laguna Woods, which is on every Wednesday morning at 9:30. Am I right?
Yes.
Thanks again, Cindy.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for watching. And if you have an interesting story or know someone who does, email us, LagunaWoodsStories@gmail.com.